These pictures were taken inside a nation that is completely shut off from the rest of the world, Afghanistan. In this half hour, we will show you a secret war, the mud homes of an ancient people pulverized by Russian heavy artillery, brave peasant men who believe they are fighting for Allah. And we will show you how these courageous people are turning captured weapons against a world superpower and frustrating the enemy who would crush them. Soviet tanks rolled into Kabul the day after Christmas, 1979. Immediately, all Afghan borders were closed to Western journalists. To get the extraordinary story you will see here, photographer Rich Pauley and I had to be smuggled into Afghanistan by friendly Afghan guerrillas. A little black dye dabbed on a blonde beard and a shopping trip to a frontier bazaar for a shalwar kameez suit turned Rich into a passable Afghan. It was a much bigger problem for me, a Western woman in a virtually all-male Muslim culture. I dressed as a local woman with a full chador. As additional security, I was to be hidden in a battlefield ambulance driven by a guerrilla surgeon. My disguise met with the approval of our guerrilla escorts. Their plan was to smuggle me past 8 military checkpoints in an ambulance. I was to be passed off as a Sister of Mercy on her way to the battlegrounds. 7 checkpoints and 4 hours later, we reached our first stop. This is Pара-Чинар, a town where some Western journalists had been caught and jailed a week earlier. We were on the frontier now, and this is a secret way station for guerrilla fighters crossing into Afghanistan. Bearing arms is a way of life, and I was thankful I was under the protection of Commander Ishaq Gilani. Gilani is not only an urbane and educated gentleman, he's also very devout. And like the men he leads, he bows in Islamic prayer 5 times a day. Gilani is a member of the Supreme Command of the Moderate Guerrilla Alliance. In fact, he's the nephew of the leader of the National Islamic Front of Afghanistan. After prayer, we picked up more guerrilla soldiers who would go with us to the battlefront. This would take another 2 hours over very rough roads with no bridges over rivers. Then we reached our last stop. You can travel by jeep no longer. In fact, our ambulance stuck in the mud. From here, it would be a grueling hike to the battlefront. But we would stay overnight and rest. Here, the war was evident. A captured Russian dashika. This village has been strafed many times by Russian gunships. And now I was assigned my own personal bodyguard, who would risk his life to protect mine. That night there was a war council, a jirga, as the guerrillas call it. From all around, 40 or so local commanders journeyed on foot to meet our commander, Ishaq. Those with lesser rank, who couldn't squeeze inside the room, stood around the doorway. This jirga was to plan an attack on the Russian garrison. These few brave men were prepared to face 300 enemy soldiers, 8 tanks, and more than 10 armored personnel carriers. They would launch the attack the day I returned to Pakistan. But first, they wanted to take me to the battlefield. Behind me and photographer Rich Pauley, Pakistan, and ahead, some 20 grueling miles over a steep mountain, Afghanistan and the battlefields. And because our escorts were so concerned for our safety, they sent the main group of guerrillas we were traveling with the regular route across the border, a route which passed the final military checkpoint before Afghanistan. We took a secret, harder way. We were joined along the way by a camel caravan. Why this caravan was bypassing the checkpoint was a question we didn't ask. We finally get our first glimpse of Afghanistan. We have been climbing almost straight up for 3 hours. This is Jaji, the village we're headed for. It has been the site of heavy fighting for the last 2 days. We rendezvoused with the main body of the guerrillas and with Commander Ishaq Gilani at the site of a bombed-out factory. This is the first building we saw in Afghanistan. It once produced furniture, but 4 years ago it was destroyed by guerrillas fighting the Russian-backed communist government of Afghanistan. Leaders like Ishaq Gilani and his guerrilla forces have successfully stood off the Russian push into Afghanistan. They are fiercely brave, although they're outgunned by the Russians, who patrol this country in helicopter gunships. In fact, our large group could be easily detected, and we were in constant danger of enemy attack. This is Jaji. This is the way the people in Afghanistan live. We wouldn't stay long. We wanted to explore more of the countryside and see evidence of the war. But we had to be careful. We were surrounded by minefields. Most of the mines were planted in and around the scrub brush, and some of the mines were dropped from gunships. For miles around, this land can no longer be tilled because of the mines. We were heading for Fort Sarai, the site of a great guerrilla victory 7 months ago. This fort was occupied by hundreds of enemy soldiers. For 3 months, the guerrillas laid siege. So many were killed that the Russians couldn't bury some of the dead. Do you know they're Russian bones?
Yes, I was there at that time in the fighting time. It was last September. They are the bones that they couldn't get their dead body, and the dogs eat all of them, and their bone is left here. We don't have anything else for Americans. If you want, we will give you this as a gift if you want.
You want me to take those home?
Yeah, just a gift. We don't have anything else.
The guerrillas captured several Russian tanks, and what's unusual about it is that the Russians never came back for these. Usually when the Russians lose tanks or heavy pieces of equipment in battle, they will send back their big helicopters to airlift the lost equipment out of enemy hands. But these tanks remain as trophies for the resistance.